Some perspective on the Kavanaugh hearings.
The Dan York State of Mind program is brought to you in part by Lookout Rhode Island and Takeo Comfort Solutions.
Brown professor Hilary Levey Friedman is my guest tonight. She is not just the sociologist that I love to go to for all sorts of deep thinking, but she has now become active as the president of the local chapter of the National Organization for Women. And look, I think that's a perspective that we really need to get when it comes to these hearings and this now, I don't know, investigative period that seems to be as contentious as the hearings in terms of how we're going about this, but we'll get into that in a couple minutes. Nice to have you aboard on this semi-rainy Monday. The U.S. did a terrible job in the Ryder Cup. Tiger must have been just too exhausted. And my Giants are 1-3, and Kevin's Patriots are back on track, so life's good for him, and for me, it's just the same old routine lately. All right, that's the sports commentary. We didn't even put anything up for it because I'm just... Ugh. All right, hey, listen, a couple of political things are going on that I just wanted you to be aware of, especially you people in District 15 in Cranston. Look at the headline. This is in the Providence Journal today in the political scene. Now the speaker is maxing out on his adversarial position with the Paw Sox ownership. This is ridiculous. This is the guy who said that he did everything he could to put that deal together with the interest of the taxpayers in mind, and now that the deal has gone south, and because he's in the battle of his political life, he's decided to exploit it. Look at this flyer that has been going round and round that he has sent out. The billionaire owners, bad, bad, bad people, right? And here's a total timeline. The billionaire owners of the Pawtucket Red Sox asked you to pay for their ritzy new ballpark in Pawtucket. Taxpayers revolted against his corporate welfare. Nick Mattiello refused to give in to the owners' demands, listened to the people, and put forth a fairer funding plan that protected taxpayers. The billionaire owners abandoned and the fleet, well, they fleeced Worcester and ran. Okay. Now, this kind of comical revisionist history is, I think, pretty transparent to most common sense people in Cranston. I still have not seen, nor would I believe, the research in Cranston that tells me that this is a big issue. So I don't know what is going on there other than Nick Mattiello trying to hold on to his, I don't know, leadership reputation. Let me tell you what the funniest part of this whole thing is. Funny, interesting, and funny sad, not funny haha. You ready for this? The lobbyist that the Paw Sox hired to convince Mattiello that this project should go through at big six-figure dough, I'm told, is the same lobbyist firm political company that put that flyer out. Only in Rhode Island. Next item. Unbelievable, right? Unbelievable. Joe Biden was in the House. And there are some people out there who actually think that he's presidential material. I'm trying to figure out why. But he spoke well, he always does.
Folks, this election is bigger than politics. That's not hyperbole. It's bigger than politics. The core values that built this nation are at risk. That invisible moral fabric that holds up a society, a democracy, is being shredded. I mean, literally being shredded. Our institutions are under assault.
Look, Joe Biden, I think, is easy to digest. I think it's done great things for this country. There's no chance in God's green earth he can beat Donald Trump, nor have the kind of campaign that would even compete or get close. Democrats have a real big problem. They know it, and the closer you get to Joe Biden, the more you understand that he still has a lot to offer. But the presidential thing is way too much to bite off, no doubt. All right, the latest going on with the Kavanaugh hearings. This headline: yeah, they await the investigation, but there's a lot, or the results of it. But there's so much going on. Let me update you from this morning's latest.
Republican Senator Jeff Flake explained to 60 Minutes why he sided with Democrats when he pushed to reopen the FBI background check into Supreme Court nominee Brett Kavanaugh.
You're telling all women that they don't matter.
What I was seeing, experiencing in an elevator and watching it in committee and just thinking this is ripping our country apart.
Yesterday, the FBI interviewed Deborah Ramirez, one of 3 women who've accused the judge of sexual misconduct in the 1980s. Kavanaugh denies all the allegations against him.
This can't become a fishing expedition.
The White House was adamant it won't micromanage the process.
The Senate is dictating the terms.
But Democrats are concerned they're limiting the investigation's scope.
But they cannot say, oh, hey, only interview the people in their neighborhood on one side of the street, or only interview people from a certain period of their life.
I mean, sadly predictable that we'd have this kind of turmoil about the investigation. I'll tell you, Jeff Flake, who I think did a really, really courageous thing in trying to pull this thing together for a pause, as they like to say, is going to have a real credibility issue at the end of this thing, because if the investigation is really just going through the motions and is a fix by the Republicans and doesn't get to near the kind of work that the FBI is capable of and would normally do, then what happens, right? I don't know. Then, Hillary, what happens? What do you think?
Well, the problem is we have so much anger, whatever's going to happen, but especially assuming he gets confirmed, where do we put that? What do we do with that? And especially among women. I mean, the new poll numbers that are coming out, women are changing their minds on this vote, on this confirmation vote, and it's definitely a concern. Where does this go? But probably everyone should be worried for 2020.
Yeah, by the way, I saw a CBS poll this morning that said something along the lines of 41 men, 28 women. In other words, approval. So, I mean, it's not like guys across the board. I mean, obviously the Republican bias, you have to build that in. I'm sure Republican women score much higher. But I'm sure they're also holding on to a little bit of what with this whole situation. The president today, by the way, just before we got on the air, because we tape early in the afternoon, the president lost his marbles today again with a riff after he announced his new trade deal with Mexico and Canada. Just went into one of those, he thinks he's on a roll with the riffing going on, and he probably bounced back and forth 3 or 4 times on what he thinks or what the investigation is going to do. And so it didn't, if we're looking for some stability and consistency of approach, today didn't help. Crazy. But your perspective as both a sociologist, somebody who more than dabbles in politics, as a professor, and now your role as a National Organization for Women. By the way, does that advise you, your role at now and how you teach the kids, or are they compartmentalized in this or in general?
Well, just to give you an example, I think that it helps my teaching in as much as I'm able to bring in policy people who are making policy on the issues that I teach about. Right, so networking, and then obviously I'm actually quite concerned, like this semester I teach all first years, and I want to make sure they're either registered to vote here or to make sure that they have absentee ballots wherever they're from, because I don't have any Rhode Islanders in the particular class I'm teaching. So in that way, I'd like to think it informs it, but of course I keep anything political outside of the classroom.
Why would you want first-year students, or you can't call them freshmen anymore, is that right? That's the new thing?
At Brown, we do call them first years.
Yeah, it's this whole new thing. Did you guys all know that? You can't call a freshman a sophomore, or a junior, or a senior anymore. You have to call them first, second, third, and fourth year.
Well, we still say sophomore, junior, senior. It's the freshman.
Oh, just the freshman. You don't call them freshmen anymore.
Yes.
Because it's hurtful?
Well, I do have to say, so I'm teaching a first-year seminar.
I didn't think we'd get on this track, but you always
you never know.
You always throw me something. It's hurtful.
I had to say that when I was in college, I took a freshman seminar, and so I've had to sort of retrain myself to say first-year seminar as opposed to freshman. But it is true that in the days when freshman seminars were invented, the colleges weren't co-educational, and so that is a huge success that we have more women than men.
Oh, it's the man person, not the fresh I thought it was the fresh part.
No, it's freshmen.
Well, wait a second. I was calling some Ivy League games on the radio last year, men's, and we couldn't call them freshmen either. It was first year, or they're listed as first year.
Right.
Everyone's listed as first year.
Right.
All right.
It might mean something different in sports, though, too, because if you're a first-year player, as if you were redshirted. Anyway.
All right. All right. Anyway, America's ripped apart here.
We live in an incredibly divided country. That has become extremely clear. I actually just read a great Washington Post piece this morning about a cul-de-sac in Oklahoma and two neighbors and how they just have completely different takes on everything. And how do you exist side by side? And, you know, it's very difficult right now. And I do think it was good that we press pause. But whatever you think about the nature of the accusations against Judge Kavanaugh, he certainly displayed that he does not have the temperament necessary to serve on this court, to be unbiased, to not get upset. I mean, I think that was quite a display, and Matt Damon did a great send-up of it Saturday night, in case you missed that.
No, I didn't miss it. The SNL bit was incredible. When we come back, we'll talk more about this. Stay with us.
I believed he was going to rape me. I tried to yell for help. When I did, Brett put his hand over my mouth to stop me from yelling.
My family and my name have been totally and permanently destroyed. We mean no ill will.
Okay, your take on the play-by-play of this process, other than the disposition of the judge, is what?
Is that we're in a moment right now, undoubtedly, where women feel like their voices are not being heard. And so for this to be going on at the national level, right, like if he's going to be confirmed and all these women feel like, wow, this is my story too, and nobody cares, that's just unacceptable, right? So this is the moment we're living in. Women feel that they've been ignored, whether that's about choices over their bodies, about sexual harassment or sexual assault, and this just is further dividing the country. Yeah.
The lose-lose of this is profound, I think,
yes,
in a lot of ways. And I'm not going to do any predicting about where this thing is going to turn out. I don't even know what the definition of a week is when it comes to this investigation. But if we find that this investigation is so restrictive, and the FBI just turns out a bunch of stuff that regurgitates that which we've already heard, we got big problems. Mm-hmm. I think we got big problems. And it'll be, you know, Senator Flake and a couple other key senators who will have, you know, the senators from Maine and Alaska mm-hmm. are probably going to hold this whole thing, and maybe West Virginia are going to hold this whole thing in their hands. This notion of innocent until proven guilty has been applied to the conversation. I'm not sure it does. It's a job interview.
This is not right. It's not a criminal investigation right now.
What is the National Organization for Women's local and national take on this? Has there been a formal position by the organization?
Definitely. I mean, before the hearings even started, we were part of, both nationally and at the state level, a movement called Stop Kavanaugh, because obviously many of his, you know, stated judicial opinions are not what we believe in. So there's a particular concern about Roe versus Wade and the potential for that to be overturned.
So this is where the sticky wicket is. You have every right to stand on those issues. That's mm-hmm. what America is about. Now, mm-hmm. I understand that there's a big fight going on, you know, see, I'm a pro-life guy, you're a pro-choice person. Okay. So it is understandable that you'd want to stop the Kavanaugh nomination simply on the policies and the politics.
I know what you're going to say. I know what you're going to say.
Well, I don't even know what to say.
Well, it doesn't mean it didn't mean he was unqualified, right? And this is a conversation in my house we have. You know my husband, who's doesn't mean he's unqualified. That's true.
Correct.
But through this process, right, through the confirmation process, I do think we have evidence that he's unqualified. I mean, what I said before, he doesn't appear to have the judicial temperament or to be able to be unbiased in a hearing. You know, whether that's on Roe v. Wade or not. Think about, like, Bush v. Gore from 2000. Clearly, like, we know what he would do apart from the facts of the case.
But what you want to have just for bringing some normalcy back to the country and some sanity mm-hmm. is you want at least this investigation to come to a place, and I don't know that it possibly can, mm-hmm. the way it's going, but in a real, and I mean in a perfect world, with a perfect solution to an imperfect world and a ridiculous divide in this country, you would want an investigation to bear out some legitimacy, and if he was going to be approved to have some Democrats cross the aisle and say, look, you did the investigation, there was no there that was provable, and I'm coming across. Instead, we're still going to get a 51-49 vote, no matter what. You know what I'm saying?
Right. I mean, the problem is, though,
I think I'm more credible. I'm kidding, but I do, because I'm a pro-life guy that would have said, all right, this guy's, you know.
Right.
But now he's already told me.
But would your decision on this hinge on the results of this investigation, or do you feel like your mind is set anyway now?
No.
I think
the investigation is very important to me as a constituent.
It is.
Very important.
Okay.
You know, and I've got so many lifelong friends that are just so hell-bent on this being, you know, the Democratic conspiracy. Who cares what he did in high school? You know, you can't have it both ways, though. I've yet to test my very close high school buddies who are there's 10 strong of us that still talk daily on email.
That's neat.
Well, what was going on when we were 14, 15, 16, 17, and 18 that causes us at 57, 40 years later, to be so close? Something of character.
Right.
Something of...
It stays with you. It's part of who you are.
Right?
Right.
So if that's the basis, don't tell me that it's a disqualifying situation. I'm not talking about getting bombed on Friday nights.
Right.
I'm talking about mouth covered by hand, screaming, double teaming type of stuff that I can promise you, as crazy as we think we were, that didn't go on.
Right.
Right.
And the thing, too, about the hearings, to go back to, like, not having the temperament, but also, if we're going to talk about high school, what's in the yearbook? I know Senator Whitehouse, our own senator, was active on this, but it appears he was even lying about the meanings of what was written. I mean, maybe they had their own interpretations, Kavanaugh and his buddies, but there are some accepted definitions of what he put in there that don't jibe, and those probably reveal something as well. So if you're going to lie about something little about that, like that, what else are you going to lie about?
All right, so when we come back, I want to talk about the divide and how it actually manifests itself right here in Rhode Island. Stay with us.
Senator Flake, you've announced that you're not running for re-election, and I wonder, could you have done this if you were running for re-election?
No, not a chance.
Not a chance?
No.
Because politics has become too sharp, too partisan?
Yeah, there's no value to reaching across the aisle. There's no currency for that anymore. There's no incentive.
That's bad.
Very bad.
That's good. I mean, that was honest, but that's bad.
Mm-hmm.
Really bad.
Mm-hmm. Look, Dan, officially, Rhode Island Now, the National Organization for Women, we are a nonpartisan organization. We will support candidates who believe in our issues. But to speak to that divide, our issues tend to be associated with only one party these days. And yes, that's concerning. We believe in issues of equality, and we think everyone should be supporting those
Now, I understand
issues.
you weren't involved, so you're off the hook, but I'd like your candid commentary on this. Here's a headline from last week. This was infuriating. In our own state house, women activists call for Fung and Trillo to specifically stand on Kavanaugh nomination. First of all, the logic is faulty, because all they had to do is say, hey, listen, we're waiting to see if there's an investigation, and that's exactly what they said, and so they were off the hook. Secondly, the transparency of the politics is just so blatantly stupid that people start to look at that stuff and go, you know, and Gina Raimondo puts out a whole press release calling for those two as if that's germane to, that's where the divide is right now. It's everybody grasps at every particular straw to fight the battle. Your take?
Well, this was particularly relevant in Senator Whitehouse's race, and Judge Flanders had put out a statement saying,
well,
you know, being very
White
negative
House is on
because
the
he could confirm.
Committee.
Right.
By the way, he's a national star.
Right.
Every time he gets in the middle of this, although the yearbook interrogatory was not, you know, you know, he's the pit bull who does what he has to do because he doesn't feel like he's got re-election problems, and based on the way the Flanders campaign has not brought it, Flanders blue chip guy with a not blue chip campaign. I don't think he's got, meaning Sheldon, anything to worry about here. But
it is true, of course, the
this kind of
gubernatorial
grinding is terrible. Right. That the Democrats in general, and here specifically in Rhode Island, use this as another opportunity to launch themselves. The Democratic Women's Caucus. Anita, let's get that young lady in here, because I want some questions for her answered. I mean, you've got to have a somewhat political science, objective take on the garbage that this kind of climate spews on both sides of the aisle.
Well, of course, we want people to be able to speak out and express their opinions, and I think this is one way for people to do it. But it is absolutely true that, at the level of the governor, they cannot directly influence whether or not Kavanaugh is confirmed. And so I think sending out that narrative could confuse some people, right?
Well, to your point, I think you made a great point. Listen, I don't have a problem with Deb DeBear, from the formerly the director of the Coalition Against Domestic Violence, who's terrific and has been a guest here. We had her here when she retired. She's done heroic work on sexual abuse and all of that kind of a thing. And if she was going to use this as another clarion call for women to be respected, period, fine. In fact, I guess the National Hotline doubled the amount of calls during the whole thing last week. That's the platform that they ought to reasonably be on. But you don't extend it. She didn't, by the way. But the Women's Caucus and Gail Golden, the senator, you start launching it on Trillo and Fung. And Raimondo backs it up with a press release. It's just bad politics. It's the kind of stuff that make people go, pew, I don't like this anymore.
Well, it was asked at the gubernatorial debate on Thursday night of all the candidates if they supported Governor Charlie Baker's position, who of course is a Republican, that there should be a delay on the vote, and they all agreed with that. Now, that being said, there are real differences between those three candidates, especially when it comes to women, and I'm sure you saw the clip where they're asked pro-choice, pro-life, and Fung launches into some long-winded answer, and it was supposed to be 2 syllables, and Trillo went after him during the debate. And Trillo went after him.
Well, Alan Fung is a B- guy at best, because he just doesn't know how to bring it. Trillo's fighting. I get all that, but neither one of them should have had to respond. And I think people just kind of go, "Come on, we got a minute. What do you?" Is there any kind of defining opinion on what's going on here? I mean, is there something you go to bed at night thinking, all right, at least this is happening, or this is the problem, or we're in deep trouble?
Well, this is what I think. People are motivated, their eyes are open, and we must find a way to channel that into productive energy, right? People want to be involved, they want their voices to be heard, and there are real, tangible ways to do that. You can be a citizen who lobbies at the State House, who goes and testifies. You can be a person that volunteers on a campaign and makes a real difference, whoever your candidate is.
You think this Kavanaugh hearing thing speaks to that?
I do, because, we're coming off the Women's March, all of that, off of Me Too. A lot of that lived online. The Women's March was a march. It was physical. You were there. But this is showing, how government works. This is what a hearing looks like. You can go and you can make your voice be heard. So I think translating that is really important.
By the way, that activism, all legit. You know why Trump got elected? Because of that activism. And that's where the exists. Always good to see you.
Good to see you.
We got to get on that freshman thing, though. We'll do a whole show on that. We'll be right back. Still on that freshman thing. This is what drives people crazy in this country. That things that have been historic and really don't bother anybody, and you never really thought one way or the other about it, maybe you did, but so what, have to be changed because somewhere, somehow, somebody had a significant problem with it. That's why Trump got elected, because a lot of us are just furious with that, right? All right. A unique candidate for governor tomorrow, and we'll keep up to date with the hearings, and we'll talk to you at 3 until 6 on WPRO as well. Thanks.